Going on, everybody? We live. Yes, sir. We live. Rastafunk live. Internalize. We're back once again, as we are every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening at 8 o'clock p.m. on the Eastern Time in the United States of America. That's where we at. That's what we doing. We did it last weekend and started out, and made it through the first couple of days, and made it through this weekend with hopefully some good information for everybody. Some good thoughts that's worth tuning into on a regular basis. The thoughts that we have. Yeah, we're gonna allow people to go ahead and trickle on in. And before we get started, we've had a pretty good weekend and what we're doing, and we just want to continue with the weekend because we have a overall theme for the weekend, and that's what we're trying to do. With the weekend because we have we're just making sure everything's cool with the Facebook, and making sure everything's cool with the YouTube channel. Yeah, that's what we got. Yeah. Also, if anyone wants to join us, we're gonna put where you can join us in the chat if you want to call in and actually you have something you want to say to add to the conversation. Whether you agree with me or not. That's what it's all about. We're trying to spark conversation about multiple things, and that's really where we're at with it. We're trying to spark conversation about multiple things. We're trying to spark conversation as the Internalize series, evolves. We're trying to spark conversation that hopefully pushes us all forward, where we can have some debate, some dialogue, know some things where we're following each other and making each other better as people. Because I think that in the end, that's what it's all about. It's not about necessarily my thoughts, but it is about us coming together and being the best that we can be. Growing as a people. And so that's why I started, just to do that. And it's 8:03 Eastern Time, and we'll let it, like I say, we'll give it a little time before we actually get started. As far as the overall where we're at, where we're gonna go, what we want to do for the evening, and hopefully everybody had a positive day. For me, my day was I was productive in the way that I needed to be. Was able to spend a second with my kids, getting them straight on some things, and had a meeting with some of my brothers, and we was able to be all on the one on some things, which is a really good thing. To be able to meet with brothers and not have any animosity and not have any ego, that's a positive thing. So when it's all said and done, my day was positive. Had a little time to actually prepare for the evening. Sometimes I don't have that, but we made it happen this evening. And yeah, that was how my day went. I was productive. Yes, I was productive, and I hope everyone else was. In whichever way you need to be. That's the other thing. Don't it's not no one way. It's not no one way to be productive on the things that we're trying to do individually, and because that's in the end what makes us come together collectively by being focused and active and productive in what we're supposed to be doing. And by doing that, many times we may need assistance, and we may not be experts at other things, but if we're all active, we're always able to find someone doing something to, help us in the other things. You may need some help with your credit. You may need some help, getting your business started, or, you know, expanding your business. You may need some help finding employees. There's so many different avenues, that you may need some assistance. So with that said, it's always good to be active in what you're doing, because that's how you're able to, be around people and find people who can help you in the ways you need help. Because a lot of times in helping them, they will refer you to other people, or they will mention something, or you may see them doing something that you need done, and you're like, "Who did that? How'd you get there?" So it's always good, just like I said, to be productive, in what you're doing. Yeah, that's what's up. So tonight we're going to be our theme, and what we're going to be talking about is, can I get some sauce on it, please? I'm sorry, can I get some source on it, please? Yeah, can I get some source on it, please? That's what we're talking about tonight. And basically, we're tying in what we talked about over the weekend. And, before I really get into it, I want, just to talk a little bit about me, just a little bit, not a lot, but people may be wondering what makes me qualified to be talking at 8 o'clock on the weekend. Why should anyone want to listen to me? Is there any truth in what I got going on? Is there anything real in what I got going on? Am I proof positive of the things that I'm talking about? So, I thought I would spend a second talking about me and where I'm at and who I am and my history. So, for those who know me, Rastafunk, I've been doing music uh, my adult life, all of my adult life. When I graduated high school, I was a track and football athlete. I got a scholarship to play football. I left the scholarship within the first year to come back home and do music, and started doing music. Continued doing music with a brother that I had been doing music with once I graduated high school. We started as seniors in high school working together. And to this day, even though we don't live in the same city, and even though we haven't probably done anything in over 10 years or so, he's still my brother that I do music with, the brother law. And so, with that said, I grew as a musician into what I'm doing now is Rastafunk. And prior to that, I was a military brat. And with that, I was able to travel in different places around the world, mostly in the Far East, um, Korea. We stayed in Japan and that area. And so I was able to gain certain experiences through traveling in Asia. And I was able to also learn about religion. I grew up in a very religious family, a holiness family in in the southeastern United States. And if you know anything about that, it's a lot of shouting and spiritual and tongues and all of that. A lot of jumping around, a lot of instruments, a lot of beating and banging, and a lot of rhythm, a lot of things. So you grow up within that particular environment. So religion becomes something that is, for lack of a better way of putting it, it becomes a curiosity when you see other people doing other things. And so I was introduced to world religion when I was in world religions while I was in Japan as a young person. So that was, my initiation into um, expanding my mind outside of just black thought. Prior to that, my father's family was very pro-black. I never was able to play with black kids. I was never able to play with dolls that weren't black. When Star Wars came out, I could play with Chewbacca, until Billy D. Williams came in the second Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. So, I was basically surrounded by, as a youth, um, spiritual black church and educated black thought. And so, once I got a little older, I was able to, just expand that thought through experience, through living, through seeing certain things, and once I was able to get married, my ex-wife made it a point on every vacation to try to go somewhere. So we traveled. I've seen the pyramids in Egypt. I've seen the pyramids in Mexico. We've been, throughout the Caribbean. Um, chilled in Paris for a little while. So we've been so I've seen certain things that I'm talking about in action. I've seen certain cultures do what they do as opposed to what um, Americans do. I've seen how the Black American, that we built over the last 20 to 30 years is not winning in the world, not consistently. Not you know they don't we don't control any economics in any environment, in the West. We don't control our education in any environment in the West, and we barely control it in the Caribbean and in Africa. So, with that said, there are some examples of places in the world that are thriving, places in Africa that are thriving. So, it's not an imperfect situation. It's just a very imbalanced situation that I've been able to witness from travel and seeing certain things myself. I've been fortunate to meet people who are experts in certain fields and talk to them about certain things. So so I've gotten firsthand information on certain aspects and certain things I'm talking about. I try not to talk about anything that I haven't had experience in. I'm not big on advising people on what they should and shouldn't do, or what relationship they should get in or shouldn't get in. I'm mostly here doing the internalize because first of all, I was talked into doing it from a friend. He mentioned that people might be interested in my thoughts beyond just me writing them down on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? As I'm doodling throughout the day, having a break or so, maybe I should talk about it a little bit further, and people may be interested. So that's part of why I started, and we continue to try to evolve at this, and find the internalized thoughts that we feel like people might be interested in. That may spur on a little thought. They may spur on some conversation. That so that like I said, moving forward, we all grow together. I'm definitely not perfect in my thought processing and all the things that I'm doing, but like I said, I just wanted you all to get to know exactly who I am a little bit in my history and why I think I'm qualified to say some of the things I'm saying and to talk about it. But when it's all said and done, what I'm saying is not what's in stone. It's not the last word. It's not. It's simply what I believe is something to talk about, a thought process. Sometimes people will post something and there'll be this comment that may have nothing to do with the post, but because the post came across their particular feed, it spurred a certain idea in their mind that which is why the comment was what it was. And for me, a lot of times I'm that person, and so if it spurs something that I feel is really relevant for me to post, or something that makes me think a little more or laugh a little harder, then I'll post it in an internalized way. So moving forward, it's about 8:15. We'll get started. That's who I am, Rastafunk. I've traveled some places. I've met some people. I've experienced some things, and basically that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking. And if I don't know anything, if I'm ever wrong, if I say something wrong, please in the comments let me know. Or you can come on. We put in the comments on the StreamYard link if you're interested in calling in and talking with us, or you have something to add to the conversation, whether it's adverse or whether it's in agreement. We appreciate you for doing it. Can I get some source on it, please? Just a little source. That's all I want. I just want a little source. What am I talking about when I say I want a little source on it? Initially over the weekend, we started out Friday evening with happiness or crabbiness, basically saying we don't seem to be happy for other people because we're not happy ourselves, and it's telling when you have a source. You have someone who's a direct source saying, hey, I feel this way and everything is great. And people on the outside focus on little strings and little chinks in the armor of the relationship. They never focus on what that relationship is really doing from the mouths of the people in the relationship. So if they hear someone say something out of line, see, I told you it was like that. I told you it wasn't perfect. They saying it's perfect, but it's not perfect. It can't be perfect, and many times when those people are doing that, you have to look back at what they're dealing with. And it's their personal experience and their unhappiness that makes them not be able to focus on the other people saying we're happy. It makes them focus on the chinks in the armor and the strings coming out of the sweater. And it makes them pull at those and trying to, unravel the whole situation from afar, which is really crabbiness, crabs in the barrel, whether they realize it or not. Because, think about it. You don't even know these people a lot of times when you're, commenting on certain situations. Or you may know these people, but you don't have the certain situation that you're talking about. So you're not really protecting them. You're not looking out for them, and I went into also saying, given I guess the caveat is the word about violence. Violence is one thing. If it's something really going on in a relationship, you're looking out for them if you go help them in that way. However, if that's not what's happening and it's just some innuendo or someone says something that you don't agree with, and it's their relationship. And if they say they're happy, why can't we be happy for them? And that was kind of what we talked about. We used some other examples, but I just wanted to quickly go over Friday as far as just why it's crabbiness a lot of times versus happiness, and why we can't be happy for other people is because we're not happy for ourselves. Last night, Saturday, we did the thought process. And the thought process was basically, speaking on there's always an alternative thought process. And if you're privy to that thought process, it really can help you understand and formulate how you move. But if you're only moving off your thought process, you're probably going to run into some issues later on down the road, and that's a brief synopsis of what we was dealing with last night. Was just basically you got two different thought processes in situations a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with humans. I got some friends that we think alike a lot, like a lot of the things we right there on it. However, we learn from each other all the time, because we don't think alike perfectly. We teach each other constantly. And that's what it's about when it's all said and done, being open, because you can't grow if you're not open and if you know everything, you know. So with that said, tonight, can I get some source on it? We want to deal with the source. We want to deal with the root. We want to find out from the source. A lot of times we speak on things that someone told us. We speak on things that we saw one headline, or we saw one post, and then especially if we see someone else posted on another platform, or it comes across the timeline again, it becomes some real, news. However, we barely research. Most people barely research to know exactly what's going on, and that, kind of goes back to what I was saying about why we can not be happy for somebody when you are hearing from them. They feel a certain way because we conditioned ourselves to believe what we want to believe in the way that we want to believe it. We haven't conditioned ourselves to be scientific about how we come to our beliefs. We haven't conditioned ourselves to research, because we didn't want to do it in schools, or we don't want to do it now. We out of school now. I got to make some money, for whatever reason. I just sometimes in my imagination, I think of why we may do things, but I don't know why, and I know I'm not, like I say, I'm not here to talk about how perfect I am. I'm here to talk about how we can all move towards perfection and move towards being better. As I see certain things that are going on, and this was something that I see that's quite prevalent, that we don't deal with the source. Reggie White. Reggie White wanted to learn to read Hebrew because he wanted to learn what the Torah was saying exactly. He didn't want to learn. He had already heard what King James said. He read the Bible. He believed it. However, King James version came from something else. So he went around telling everybody, I need y'all to start learning the Torah. That's what I'm doing. Because he wanted to go to the source of what he felt like was the initial book, of the Bible. And that was totally respectful. I totally respect that of him, because he's doing exactly what I'm saying. How can you know if someone's always telling you? How can you know what you're doing is actually working? How can you know if you need to tweak something you're doing if you don't research it yourself? It's very interesting. I have a friend who started a business solely because people wouldn't help themselves. They would rather him do it and buy from him. And, quiet as kept, I believe he added, when he started, I think, he probably added $10, $15, because people wouldn't do it themselves. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to charge this. I'm going to charge this. Let me add a couple, about $20 to this, because since they gonna pay, damn it. If they since they don't want, because that, why don't you want to do it yourself? Why don't you want to why don't you want to know the source? And we've conditioned ourselves to be lazy that way. For me, whenever I get some equipment, it's funny. Musicians will always be like, man, you ain't turned it on yet, and I always read the book. I like to know what it can do. I like to know how to do it before I actually jump into it, so that I have a clue of my boundaries. And the only way to know the boundaries is to go to the source of where they're telling you the boundaries are. If you get started and a year later you're like, oh man, they could do that. You may have held yourself back with the machine because you didn't read what it could do. So the source is very important. You know, it's kind of funny. As we build this Black America we've been building, part of that psyche and part of that person that I've seen being built likes to think that people in the world think like he does. And mostly that Black American believes people of the world thinks like he does because he talks to he talks within his community, like at the barbershop, about how people of the world think and feel about them, as opposed to really talking to people. You know, if I feel like I want to compel to someone's compassionate side, I need to talk to them to find out if they have a compassionate side. I need to know. I can't just assume it because I've lived long enough to know that some people don't have that. So you have to go to the source. And if you don't go to the source, you never know. You know, it's unfortunate to a certain degree that everyone, you know, that we don't grow up around diversity. You have to actually search out diversity. You know, I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to travel, being on a military base. You have people from all around the world sometimes at your military base. You definitely have people from all the different states, you know, which shows you different situations, you know, and how different people think, you know. So I was fortunate in that way. I was also fortunate. I had a friend, it's a white guy. We grew up together. We played football together from 6th grade to 9th grade. And so his name's Brian. And so Brian met me on Facebook. No, Brian called me. He found my number and he called me in Fort Lauderdale. I had moved from Fort Lauderdale, and at that time I think I was married in Atlanta by then. And so my cousin called me from Fort Lauderdale and she said, my nickname is Tiki. You know, as a musician, I'm Rastafunk, but my family calls me Tiki. You know, so she said, Tiki, some white guy called you and left his number and told me to give it to you. And so I was like, what was his name? And she said, Brian Conrad. I said, Brian, yeah. Text me his number. So I called him and we started talking. And so as he went, and we vibed for, you know, some months, but over time he started disagreeing with some of the things I would say on my Facebook page. He felt like we should agree on letting the past go. And in moving forward, we should agree in the way that basically, for lack of a better way of putting it, MAGA people think. Now, I know that he's not a perfect person. I know that he doesn't, but I also know he's not full of hate. However, his worldview was totally different than mine. And I don't need you to agree with my worldview. You know, that wasn't what our relationship started on. That wasn't what our relationship grew on. But what I reminded him of, you know, before we, you know, before he blocked me and stopped dealing with me, what I reminded him was that we grew up on a military base. And on a military base, we are, for lack of a better way of putting it, forced to see our fathers work together. If his father came home and talked about black people and called them niggers and all this and all that, you never saw that when he went back to work. When a black person was above him, he saluted them. If he was an officer that passed by him, he stopped and saluted him. You know, if the black person told him to do something, he did it without saying nothing. You know, because that's how the military worked. So we were forced to see our parents work together and work together well. because in the Marines is they don't play. You're gonna work together, and you're gonna work together well. So with that said, he that's how he expected the outside world to work. So he mentioned to me that once that he actually joined the Marines, and once he got out of the Marines, he went to get a haircut, and he went into the city to a black barber, and they were talking about something, and he interjected how he saw it, and it didn't end in the best of ways. And he mentioned that that happened several times. And so how I explained it to him was that on a military base was in a combined environment, and that outside of a military base there's segregation. There's a black neighborhood, there's a white neighborhood, whether it's the suburbs or whatever, there's segregation. And for the most part, people only hang with who, no matter how you try to integrate, when people go home or go to leisure, they hang with people they have stuff in common with. Now there's some overlap. Yeah, some black people and white people hang out all the time together. However, the majority of black people hang out with black people that they have something in common with. The majority of white people hang out with white people. The majority of, that's just the way it is. And there's overlap, of course, but for the most part, that's how it is. So I explained that to him, but I also explained that that doesn't mean that people can't get along. People work together well, but then they go home to be leisure with who they be leisure with. I tell people when I'm working, how many times how many jobs have you had in your life, and how many of those people you work with are in your phone that you're friends with? And most people say none, but they might have one or two. They may have somebody from every job they get along with, but that I've actually never had anyone tell me that. So when it's all said and done, brother didn't agree with some of the things he saw, and as opposed to talking about it and being able to agree to disagree about certain things, he just felt like things should be the way he looked at things, and you have to let things go. And that's cool. I'm all right. I hope that he's living and blessed, and I hope he has kids and grandkids, and I hope his life is well. Because I'm all right either way. But the bigger point is that when you're dealing with certain issues, you want to be able to go to the source. When you're dealing with wanting to know if people have empathy for what you're talking about, you want to go to the source. I've experienced people not having empathy for my worldview. I had a good friend I'm just telling you about. He didn't have empathy for my worldview. And he's hearing what I'm saying from the source as far as a post, but he doesn't want to talk about something whether he agrees or disagrees. And I'm cool. Like I said, I'm not here for that, because I'm not necessarily posting, for lack of a better way of putting it, just my opinion. I'm posting from a standpoint of factual and actual truth about why I have a certain worldview. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I feel like that's our particular land that we should have economic and social control over. Period. The resources there, we should have control over. So the things I do in my life move me towards helping those things out and helping that happen. So that's my point of view when I post things sometimes, and those are some of the things that he may have seen that he didn't agree with. But most people who are of the mega mindset wouldn't agree with it, because most people of the mega mindset, first of all, don't go to the source and talk to black people. Just like most of us think that there's a certain empathy for what we're talking about and for what we need, and it's not at all. Not at all. And that's the really sad thing, that we don't do enough dialogue. They people like to judge Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X about talking to the Ku Klux Klan, or saying they want to dialogue with people who don't agree with them. But that's what you're supposed to do. If you read The Art of War, If you don't know what the enemy doing, you shouldn't be fighting. If you don't know exactly what they got going on, you should pack your shit up. You know, you shouldn't be fighting. You should be just chilling, trying to figure out what they're doing first, so that you know what you need and how you need it. So anyway, you know, I don't want to beat that horse too much as far as that's concerned. Um, you know, I had a cousin who mentioned that a friend told her that someone was talking about her, and so what I mentioned to her was that that's great, but did that friend tell you how they defended you when they was talking about you, or did they just tell you that somebody talking about you? I said, because that's what's important. You know, because what happens is I can't believe the third. I can't believe what you're saying because I ain't talked to the source. You know, but I have a much stronger I have a much stronger attitude towards what you're saying if you're telling me how they tried to talk about you and I ain't let them talk about you. I ain't with that. You know, I feel much better about you coming to me about anything someone's saying if you coming to me in that way. If you're just coming to me to tell me what somebody said, I'm gonna probably have to try to Google it or something. You know, if I want to really, understand. Because in the end, I'm gonna need some source with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna, just willy nilly, and and so that was just a little trivial little thing that I wanted to mention because I thought it was a little funny that people will come tell you all kind of shit. People want to tell you the world is flat, but I venture to say how many of those people actually have traveled the world. They want to tell you about Antarctica, but how many of them have pictures from Antarctica? Um, and so when people are telling you something and they're not coming from the source, I'm very weary of that. I'm very weary of that. It's very similar to men telling me something that women, telling me about women. I can only go so far with that, especially if they're not telling me that information comes from women. There's certain scientific things we can talk about, but I also like to know that this person has experienced talking to women, seen women, grew up around women. That is the best meter to know that someone is telling you something that is real, because they have they have proof from the source. If I'm telling you about men, something men may like, and you're telling me and you've never really been around men, and you're telling me, no, that's not how it is. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm the source. I'm telling you that I know I probably talked to more of the source than you have. And so why would you try to talk to someone about what you think it is? And a lot of times that's what the conversation is. You have women trying to catch a husband listening to what women say. It's funny. Now we have all these relationship podcasts, but in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, it was women's magazines. And it would always be some woman giving you advice about how to catch men. And I don't know if those women were married or not. I don't know what those women's advice. I don't know what their expertise and how they could do what they were doing. However, it always seemed to be off from a man's point of view, and still to this day, in most cases, it's always off because women aren't talking to men about what men want. And what I find a lot of times when I listen to men is, unless men have, because and I have to put that caveat in, or that I qualify that, because I'm fortunate to be around experienced guys who actually have had experience. Many of them grew up with mothers and fathers. Many of them are in relationships. Many of them have taken the time to talk to women, to experience women's point of view, and to know certain things from that standpoint. So that's why I always have to say, when I say, when men are talking about women, that's why I put that in there. And I also put that in there with women, because it's some women. I was watching a podcast recently with a brother and a woman, and the woman was on point. And but what's funny about her being on point was she was saying a lot of women, disagree with what they're saying because they don't want to take responsibility for certain things. And likewise for men, a lot of men don't want to take responsibility for what it is to be a man, and the number one thing with a man is being able to solve the problems, and if you can't even, you have to equate it to hunting. If we were in the village some years back, and the only way we ate was to hunt, how many of these brothers out here would be eating? How many these brothers who have kids, how many of their kids would be eating? Because I mean, the woman didn't go out. I guess in certain places, maybe the woman went out, I don't know about those places, but the woman didn't go out to hunt. The man did. Brother mentioned earlier today, as we was talking, that, in certain cases, your rites of passage as a young boy to become a man was you was put out the village and you had to come back with something to eat. So in those senses, they were raising boys to be men. Today, for whatever reason, we don't have that situation. We have a vast amount of people that, if the situation was a little different, the family wouldn't eat. And so what happens is, you lose respect for the men in your society and in your community, because the only way you eating is because the white man government is feeding you. How about that? The white man hunting and giving you some of his meat. Ooh. That's the source. The source of them eating, the source of our women, the vast number of our women and their children, which are fathered by the men, got to be fathered by some kind of men. Women in Section 8 and in lower circumstances aren't getting in vitro. They're fathered by men. They're having children by men, or boys, or the male species. I don't know, but they're being fathered. Those children being, and with that said, the source of how those children are eating and being clothed and everything pretty much is coming from a white man hunting and bringing the food back. The Black American is losing. I can say that because I have source material to show you. Look outside of the window in a Black community. Are you happy? Are you embarrassed? I don't get embarrassed for certain things I see on TV. How sometimes Black people, he made the Black people look bad. Most people who saying he making the Black people look bad, making the Black people look bad. Because they believe in the wrong Black American. They believe that it's okay to have no African in your Black. That's what they believe. You know, brother said this beautifully the other day, and I mentioned it. I think Friday. The brother said that your ancestors who came over on the boat, they wasn't invested in America. They was Africans. You know, you invested in America for whatever reason, but they was Africans. And you know, strategically, America has a certain value. The dollar is top dog around the world. So if you're able to understand that and able to change your mindset from wanting to work for people, thinking that's the bar. Oh, I work for somebody and I make 6 figures. I'm doing it. Has that changed the way the ghetto looked from the 1960s? The projects changed from the 60s. Are we looking at the same projects, the same buildings where people staying in doing the same thing? You got a cousin and an auntie and a mama and a grandmama and daughter. They all stay in different apartments in the same complex. Couldn't wait to move out of my mama's house and get my own apartment in Section 8 with the government and the white man paying my shit. Yeah, you know, so with that said, you know, that's the source of that. And when that's the source of who's paying, then what happens is you have a source to see why women don't think highly collectively of the black man. It's some black men they think highly of, but typically that's going to be someone who's either shown in the media or who's has a high status around town. You know, that's typically who they'll show interest in, whether he's truly manning up or not. That's someone they'll show interest in. But that's not the majority of the black men, unfortunately. And what it boils down to is how we raising our kids. There's only so much we're gonna be able to do as individual adults. You know, my experiment for me was I wanted to raise my children up knowing that they were African. First, I wanted them to get an education, but I wanted it to be in an African environment. So my children, my son's graduating now, but both my children went to African centered schools from pre-K up until 8th grade. And prior to that, when they were in daycare, they went to an old Southern black grandmother who cooked real food, you know, who took care of them the way my wife would have took care of them if she wasn't working at the time. So that's was the initial experiment. My daughter transitioned out into public school. She happens to go to a predominantly black public school, and but it's a predominantly black public school that's early college school. So with that said, she's able to thrive academically, continue, because where she came from, she was thriving. So she's able to continue to thrive. And with that said, that was just part two. That was just part two. Part one was for them to be raised up in African, around Africans. And what I'm saying when I'm saying raised up around Africans, in a recent interview, Shannon Sharp challenged, I want to say her name's Amanda Seals, but I had never heard of her until people started talking about the interview. And then as I was doing something for this, preparing, it came across my YouTube feed. And so I checked it out for a quick second before one of these shows this weekend. And so anyway, he challenged her on talking back to teacher. He's like, well, you know, she might have been wrong, but you know, you ain't supposed to talk back to the teachers, you know, that type of deal, you know. And it was really it was kind of gross how sorry of an interviewer he was at that moment, and how he was kind of, putting his opinion on how he felt that will, listen to her story and ask more questions. You don't have to agree with what the fuck she's saying, but you challenge her as she was a child some years ago of talking back to a teacher who was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Wait a minute, maybe So anyway, I don't want to get on that because I don't care. I'm also want to talk about my daughter. So my daughter was in summer camp, and I bought my daughter a diary because my daughter would say things sometimes, and I would tell her that the way kids talk on TV isn't the way you talk to adults in real life. You have to be a little bit more respectful. I allow you to watch these shows, but I want you to know that this spy family where the daughter is the lead spy and she runs everything and everyone listens to her in the family, they support her. She's a teenager. That's not real. Teenagers don't run the family, even if they really are spies. That's not how it works. This is a TV show. So I bought her a diary to write down thoughts. Sometimes write down what you're thinking, but you don't always have to say it. You always have to say it. Learn to write down what you're thinking. That way you can read it before you actually say it. And so she was going to her daycare, I believe. It wasn't daycare, summer camp, the YMCA. And it was the YMCA on the other side of the tracks. It wasn't the YMCA on our side of the tracks. She laid her diary down one day. One of the counselors read it, and they read something that they were concerned about and decided that she should be kicked out and couldn't come back. So we went back. We went there to see exactly what had happened and what was going on. And basically, in her last entry in the diary, and it happened to be that day when she happened to set it down and forgot it, or whatever, was that she wished these two little girls were dead because they were being mean to everybody. She wrote all of that. She said they were being mean to everybody. I just wish they were dead. The first entry in her diary is, my dad gave me this diary so I would write my thoughts down and I wouldn't just say anything at any point in time. Basically, that's what her first entry was. So you read the last entry, but you don't read anything else that's relevant. And you kick this little black child out of your YMCA because now she's a threat for some reason. So I was like, come on, baby, you with me. I brought her to work with me every day that particular week, because it was maybe one more week before we went on vacation. So it's like, whatever. Come on, you go to work with me. However, while she was at work with me, I made her read Sheikh Anta Diop's Civilization of Barbarism and write me a report. Moving forward, she's in 7th grade, I believe, at this point, or 6th grade. And a teacher said something about something. I don't remember what it was. And my daughter corrected her and cited what she read in Sheikh Anta Diop's book. And because she's at an African-centered school, the teacher said, you know what? I read that. Let me go back and check to be sure if it's true or not. That was how that exchange went. Because at an African-centered school, they care and want to empower the children. And this particular teacher was one of the top teachers there. So she actually said it to the right one. Source material. She happened to have had access to the source, or at least a top researcher of the source for whatever that was. And the teacher, and it was, and because it was the source, the teacher had to respect it. Western school, you ain't supposed to talk to nobody. You get suspended because you talking back to the teacher, and the teacher dead ass wrong. How about that? And I don't know. I'm not saying that it's in all Western school. I'm sure in certain situations, saying things, teachers will, check themselves. But, because I said so, that's why you're going to do it. That's what got the black community wrong, because I said so. That's part of our community's issue. A lot of adults think they supposed to get respect because they're a certain age, right? Because they got a certain position. And they don't even know what their position do. Somebody got to tell them something every day so they can keep their job. But explaining to children and giving them the tools to learn for themselves, then they understand. I make a point to answer my daughter. If she asks me why, I give her an answer. And not because I said so. Because I need her to understand why. So that moving forward, she don't ask me that, ask me again. This is why, so when it's all said and done, can I get some source on it, please? If we would not repeat so much, we would probably do a lot better. It's a lot of gossip, a lot of things that go on, a lot of things people cite. It's crazy because you'll see some kind of scientific fact that comes across your timeline on social media, on all the platforms, and it'll be one big ass lie. But it'll be something exciting and people will repost. They'll post something about somebody dead, and they might not have died, or they might be dead 10 years ago, and people repost. Like, no one goes to the source. We're so conditioned to not looking up things ourselves and knowing things for ourselves. We're so lazy in that way, and it carries over being lazy in other ways. That's why our bar is so set so low. Your kids got to graduate from high school. Oh, I got him graduated from college. Oh, I did my job. They got a job. Oh, I did my job. No. That's built a very terrible Black American who doesn't research shit, who just repeats stuff, who's on social media scrolling and, passing on misinformation. As soon as they get out of school, never want to learn anything again, never want to read anything again. That's what we're building. That's what we've done so far. That's where we're at. That's what most of us are. Folks are successful in their own individual mind, in their own individual family, in their own individual way. But when you ride through the neighborhood, are you seeing what you want to see? Who owns your stores? When these Section 8 sisters are cashing these checks and getting food stamps, what's the source of their income? So who are they supposed to respect? The source. And what's the deep-rooted problem? That men collectively are not stepping up. And men who think they got their stuff together typically aren't helping other brothers get to that same point. And if they are, unfortunately, we're not doing the right things to get different results. What are the right things? That's a conversation for another time. Let's just identify a certain issue that we're dealing with right now, which is we don't look to the source to find what the actual truth is. So we're walking around like zombies, being led to create this crazy Black American who's a loser. The best Black American out there is probably still looking up, trying to sit at white people table. You got just a few in Africa trying to build Africa in a way where it's actually for us. But you got them doing it. Here, they are doing something in secret, and it's so far and few and in between that, you know, it's not putting a dent in anything. Why? Because you can go on any social media platform and see the sisters are very unhappy with the brothers. You can go on any social media platform and the men who think they men, and some are doing things, but you know, they're unhappy because they don't feel like it's a crop of women that, you know, want to be mothers, want to be women. So if we don't have harmony and all we see is disharmony and arguing and debating over trivial things that most people aren't even talking to the source about, can't be building a great community or a great Black America. I mentioned this either yesterday or Friday that once again, inclusion isn't allowing the people to come to your table and talk to you about how you can do better by them and believing them. That is not inclusion. Inclusion is allowing people, like if you really want somebody to be inclusive. And what I'm saying is this isn't realistic because power don't give up power. You have to take it. So but when you want to talk about what real inclusion, like if someone really believed in you and what you're talking about, they allow you to build your own table because what they're doing may not work for you. Why you got to be with what they doing and then be included in, you know, they need to fit you in what, why you know, sometimes and many times people want to build their own thing. China don't want to be included. China got their own thing. We'll sit at the table and talk to you from a standpoint of our power. So my point is, you know, if I'm holding up your table or my brethren are holding up your table, I need those legs back so that we can build together. Y'all can figure out how to keep y'all table back up, but I need those legs back. The diamonds, the gold, the land in the Congo that could feed the world, I need that back. We're going to figure that out. We're going to feed the world, but I need it back so we can figure it out. That's the root. That's the source of what the work that needs to be done is about. And if the Black American that we're building isn't about that work, we're building the wrong Black American. Why we can't do it here? We can do it here. We've been here. We've been it. The number one reason is because your great grandmother, your great grandfather, when they was on that boat, when they finally landed here, they was African. That's the number one reason. I mean, the brother put it beautifully. That's why. They wasn't invested in what you invested in. That's why you African. And because they came from the most humane people that ever was. If you go across that equator, those are the most humane people that ever was around the world, across the equator. They allowed you in their village, they fed you, they took care of you. and it spread from Mama Africa. And it's your duty to keep that up. And if you're not building the people that are able to keep that up because they control their own village, herein lies our problem. And if you're never doing anything to find out where you're from or what you got or what you're doing, then you never know. Because you didn't go look at the source yourself. And they tell people, go to Las Vegas, go to LA. Oh, I'm going here, I'm going there. Oh, I'm coming to Atlanta, I'm going to New York. Man, take your butt outside this country. Please. If you're going on a vacation, leave the country. See that it's more outside of America. Expand your boundaries and horizons. Go to the source of whether Africa like you or not. Go to the source. They say there's a certain energy around pyramids. Go to the source. Go feel it for yourself and see. Did I feel energized? You know what I'm saying? Go for yourself and see. Oh, they rob everybody when you go to that place. If people are going consistently, talk to some who are going and see. Maybe it's not that way. You know, a brother visited New York, and he was from Tallahassee. And he was like, "Yeah, man, I just came from New York, and this is the best place I ever been. It was one of the best trips I ever been. The people were so nice and so friendly, and da 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 da." And I said, back up. I've never heard New York was a friendly place, that the people were friendly and da da da. And I've never heard that. You're the first person ever told me that. So I need you to make me understand, why are they friendly? What makes them so friendly? And the brother said, well, let me ask you this. Anyone who's had a bad experience, ask them what they was doing. And I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And what it made me think about is, I personally, like when I moved to Fort Lauderdale, one of the first things I did was, walk around the hood and met people. And my cousin was like, you know him? I was like, yeah, man, I met him when I was walking. They was like, oh man, and it was interesting because my cousins are the type of family and the type of people that everybody know. So, I instantly became cool with people when I would tell them, oh yeah, I'm Mitch and Pete cousin. I'm just checking everything out. And they're like, oh man, for real, So my experience is that when I was my first time in Africa, I ventured off, and brother helped me and showed me things, and he was my guy the whole time I was there. I suppose he could have took me somewhere to get robbed, but that's not how I roll. And so I said that to say that I understood exactly what he was saying when he was saying, ask them what they were doing. If they had a bad experience, ask them what they were doing, And so I understood what he was saying, and so I understood that he had a great time, and New York was one of the friendliest places he ever been, but that was source material from someone who's been there. So asking him that was because he's been there. I'm not asking somebody else. Like, I wonder why Ernest had a good time, Johnny. Man, I don't know what he had. He probably lying. Why am I talking to somebody else when I have someone right here who can tell me something different about a place that I've never heard that about? Source material. And that's kind of shooting the shit, although it was something educational for me personally. But when it's all said and done, important things you want to know the truth about. You want to go to the source. You want to find out. You want to dig deeper. If you want to see something different in your community, you want to find out why it's like that, and you want to find out what you can do to make it better. the sister, I was introduced to a sister this week, named Majette Wade, and she says, criticize with creativity, criticize by creative, or with criticize by creative. So if you're not, if you're dissatisfied, then you need to make something better. But the only way to make something better is to understand why it's bad to begin with. Because if you're trying to make something better and you don't understand why it's bad, then 9 times out of 10, it's a strong possibility that you could be building on the same bad stuff. For instance, people love to toot brothers and sisters who are entrepreneurs and may open a grocery, or maybe the youngest person to open a McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? All right, I get it. You're making a little money, but do we really want to invest in fossil fuels? You know what I'm saying? You can make some money, but do we really want to invest in, a place that's selling Cheerios and Fruit Loops? Now if you're opening a grocery store that's selling healthy food for Black people in the ghetto, may not be the easiest sale initially, unless you got some really good alternatives. And the thing about it is, it's so interesting that some of the most creative foods come from sisters and brothers, but vegetarian people trying to create something like meat like, and so incorporating that type of deal into your grocery store, gives other Black entrepreneurs opportunities. But the easy road is to open a grocery store in the model of Kroger and Publix and continue killing our people with that stuff that they sell in there. That's the easy road. The easy road is to open up a McDonald's, because as soon as I put in the Black neighborhood, people coming. That's the easy road. And that's celebrated. I say all the time, we have to redefine what Black excellence actually means and who fits in that. Because most of the people y'all talking about as Black excellence are not. They're not. They're Black subparness. Really. And if you was dealing with source information, you would believe it as well. You would know it to be true as well. And some people understand what I'm saying, and if you don't, please, I did put in the chat the StreamYard link if you want to come on and you want to, add to the conversation, or you have some, maybe you don't agree. Maybe you do agree. If you want to add, you're definitely welcome. If you feel like there's something that you like that we're talking about and you want to, add to what we're doing, keep us on the air, cash out, $, the original Rastafunk. We appreciate everyone who's tuning in this evening. Definitely share it with your friends. Let everyone know that on Friday through Saturday, we are right here internalizing certain thoughts and subject matter that hopefully when it's all said and done, we can bring it home to the community and build better Africans. That's what it's about. Growth and building better Africans. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I try to deal with what I do know and what I've experienced and what I can be proof positive of. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about, my brothers and sisters. Tonight we're dealing with, can you, can I get a little source on it, please? Because we are a community that is dealing with what people are giving us all the way around. All the way around, we're dealing with, people like to talk about HBCUs are Black colleges and it's ours, it's ours. And I tell people, I'm from Tallahassee. Florida A&M, one of the leading HBCUs in the country. From its inception, it's always been top in certain things. Always been number one. Had a hospital. State shut it down, so they couldn't get a medical program. State wouldn't allow them to get a law program. They had an engineering program that was so successful that the state decided to make it FSU, Florida State University / FAMU School of Engineering. And now when you see things that are going on in that School of Engineering and they actually do something that's worthwhile, it's in the media as FSU School of Engineering just did this feat or whatever. That's your black institution. Unless it's private. And most of those are struggling to stay open. And because they're struggling to stay open, and because they're, ran by, elite Black Americans, they're not really giving you any different education than the public schools, is what I'm saying. They're giving you the same education as the public schools. So although they're private, they're not doing anything, different or better than the public HBCUs. So when it's all said and done, they're not African at all. They maybe have Black people in them. They maybe have Black administrators. But the Board of Regents in the states ain't full of Black people. The offices in the states that make the rules for those schools and give out the money for those schools, they're not Black people. So the source of the HBCU is not even Black. But they ours. They putting out the best. Black Americans. The best ones to keep us losers. The best ones to keep us not owning nothing in our community. The best ones to continue to allow the white man to take care of our single mothers and their children. And, with the Section 8 and the projects and all of that. That's what the best ones are doing. That's what the best ones are doing. And if we get out of line, then they get the extreme best ones to come out and put us back in line by talking to us and, saying, we need to just go on back down, calm down a little bit, go back inside, Yeah, man. It's very unfortunate. There is promise. There are people doing things. I don't want to make it seem like it's all gloom and glory. Gloom and gore. Mostly what I'm saying is if you're not fed up, if you're not recognizing these things, then you're not going to change. If you're not going to start researching from the source. If you're not fed up, if you're not pissed off when you see this shit every day. And it's nobody's fault but ours. Because it's not going to change. Power don't seed power. Power took it to begin with. And power keeps its foot on your neck every day. You have to get it off your neck. Look at these kids protesting Palestine. It's just kids holding signs, peacefully saying, y'all need to stop bombing these people. And in the quote unquote capital of democracy in the world, where everybody's free, freedom of speech, they coming with clubs and body armor and rubber bullets, and they whooping these kids. They hurting them bad right now. arresting them. Because power ain't giving up no power. If power tell you to shut up and you don't shut up, power uses violence. That's why we think that's why a large number think we're supposed to beat kids. I assertively discipline my kids. I was assertively assertive discipline my kids. But I didn't use violence to do it. So believe me, when I walk in the room, my kids understand the difference between dad and mom. They know. It ain't about yelling and all of that. They understand the difference between dad and mom. But power, the state gonna use violence. They'll tell you to go back. Yeah, disperse. Don't disperse and see what happens. And the only way you protect yourself from that is understanding that you have to build a different person, a different community, a different child. Your child has to have different goals and different directives from you. They start from what you're telling them and teaching them. You got to put the African back into the Black American, because that's the source material for being human and knowing what to do and how to make things happen. That's the source material for learning economics and trade. That's the source material for engineering and science. That's the source material. Anything going on scientifically is expanding on what they were already doing. Any mathematics going on is expanding on the math that they started. They got little sticks with little stripes on it where they was counting, keeping count. That's the bottom line. That's the source. Africa and being African puts you in line with the source. And once you're in alignment with the source, you can move forward. You can innovate. You can build on it. Can I get some source on that, please? Extra source, please. Yeah, shake it a little bit. A little bit of that source. Shake it. For real. That's the bottom line. When, AI, you want to know about it? You got to start studying it. They got Chat GPT. It's expanded. It's not what it used to be. Go on there sometime and ask it some questions and see some of the answers it gives. You'd be surprised. Hopefully be surprised enough to look a little deeper. Could possibly be taking your job. Better be ready. I have a friend who loves to talk about YouTube University. We're at a time now where anything you want to know, you can find out. But you got to want to know. You got to want to see something different. And then you got to do something different. You can't wait. I try to better myself as much as I can, but I pour a lot of it into my kids because I feel like, for what I'm not able to achieve, they got to be able to take the baton. And And although I'm not perfect, I feel like that's the best I can do. What's the best you can do? Is it anything you're trying to do, or are you just trying to pay the bills? Are you just allowing your kids to come home and play games? Like I experienced something with my kids that I'm amazed about. I mean, literally, like it's crazy to me. Cause, well, I don't know. I don't know as I think on it. You know, when I was young, I was a type kid that if I had a project, like literally, I built. Um, I had this big poster board, and I built this castle with this battle scene and these model men and all of that. I also built uh, like a World War II scene, and then I've done the volcanoes and all kind of stuff like that when it was time, for certain projects to be. But my point was, my parents never helped me, and most times I would be like, "Dad, I need to go to the store. I got a project due tomorrow." And when I would tell him what I'm doing, he's like, "You just starting tonight? What's wrong with you?" But that was how I made it through school and how I did things. And my parents, there was a couple of years where I had to bring a note home about my homework, and my parents would have to sign it, and that to make sure I did my homework. and and I was able to get away with that. I have my parents, I write the homework really light, and then before I get to my parents, I would write no homework. After I would erase it and make it look right, my parents would sign it, and then I would erase the no homework and put the homework back and take it back the next day. I mean, I was making that thing work. However, that's why I tell people, if you beat a child, because I used to get beat, if you beat a child, they either learn to lie real quick or they are scary. I learned to lie real quick, and get away with it. So anyway, yeah, that's funny. So yeah, oh, I lost my train of thought. I apologize, everybody. Um, we're talking about I don't remember what I was talking about because that made me lose my train of thought. Because man, I wasn't one of those kids. I was amazed at how kids would run when they got a whooping, because I was trained not to run, and so I never ran. And so when people talk about, yeah, I ran and my mom had tail, I'm like, what? Really? That not me. I just took it and it's over with, and I, glad it was over with and kept moving. So anyway, I lost some train of thought thinking about getting an ass whooping when I was little. But that's part of why I have source material on on spanking kids or whooping kids. I have I'm proof positive of that experience. So I know that in raising my kids, I want to do something different. Because last thing I want is, kids gonna lie or try to get away with it on a certain level. But I don't want that to be the norm, and I definitely don't want them to be afraid of me. I want them to always know they can talk to me about anything, and that I'm there for them, so that we can stay on the one. Because if we don't stay on the one, uh, what is the father here for? If I can't figure out a way to stay on the one with my kids so that they know to come to me and they know that we got their back. What else is there? So, proof positive that I'm source material. That's why I don't do it, and the experiment isn't the not beating them. The experiment is, you know, creating an African minded child, creating a child that's anti this Black American thing person we've been, you know, raising, creating a child with a mindset that knows that their duty is to get us back on top, help us build our own table. We don't want to sit at their table. Their table doesn't work for us. you know, and I'm so I will be source material if I'm successful with my kids being able to, you know, take the baton from me, you know, but I've seen it in action. I've seen it in action. You know, one of my brothers is a highly renowned African doing some big things in Ghana. However, he's second generation. His directive was to be that person who he is. And it came from his father and mother being the people that they were. So I've seen it in action. I know that this is the path. I know that this is how it works. When you go around and you look at different cultures, brother was talking about sisters and how, you know, this is what he said. This is what he said. Sister mentioned that, you know, we want you to, they want men to put them in their femininity. And so, you know, the brother was like, well, you know, what that mean that, well, what, I'm sorry, how did he put it? He put it, well, Mexican women come over here and they husbands be struggling and they help they husbands come up and they never lose their feminine. They stay in womanhood. And then, you know, he mentioned some other ethnicities who do the same. And so what I explained to the brother was that those people are coming from a culture that's rooted in family. It's rooted in gender roles. Rooted. It ain't new. It's ancient. And they've never lost it. They're coming here never losing that. So yeah, they're struggling and coming up together in a balanced way. Handling each other's role. Handling the role that they're supposed to handle. Unlike over here, which is not a culture rooted in family, which is not a culture rooted in gender roles. Just mentioned today that one of the top officials in the nation, when she was being questioned to get her job, they asked her what a woman was, and she said, I don't know. And that was acceptable. That's the culture we live in. That's not family at all. And if you're not dealing with family and gender roles, you're not dealing with the source. You know, when it's all said and done, you know, people can talk about, they can have any conversation they want to have about homosexuality and gay, and you know, you can feel however you want to feel about it. I'm not here to make anyone feel any kind of way. I have my opinion. It's not in my not in my immediate family. As far as my kids, it's not something that I toot. As far as I'm not saying you should do it. It's not something I agree with at all. I do have family members that participate. And I love them for who they are. However, my kids understand that those aren't values that we accept. With that said, my only real issue, because it's not an influence in my life on my children's life in that way, my only real issue is that they are trying to equate what they're doing with what got them here. And what they're doing won't get nobody here. But a man and a woman doing what has been done since the beginning of time got them here to make the choice that they want to make. Whatever your choice is at that point, it had to be a man and a woman that got you here. And so in my opinion, and in my truth and in many other people's truth for thousands of years, that's what's honored, the man and the woman coming together and procreating. Now, if you choose to honor some other shit, you got to honor the source. Like, we don't even honor the source in just life. What the fuck? You know, it's funny, before I start saying this, you know, and I really wish I could remember what I was saying before and finish that. But you know, before I start saying this, I didn't even think about it in that way. But you know, we can't even respect life and how life comes about. We can't respect that source. Like, we want to make up our own source, or what. I don't know what at that point it becomes so unimaginable. Like, what are you talking about? Really? Comes to mind at this point. I don't care what you do, but you got to respect the source. I believe I have 3 nieces that are all gay. I honestly believe they respect the source. They live their truth, you know, however they want to live over here in America. But I believe that I believe that, you know, if I ask them, they'd be like, oh, hell no. My mama and my dad, you know, I love them. That's how I got here. You know, I choose what I choose, you know. Matter of fact, I know one of them, you know, it's sad, but she's very pretty. And she said she got tired of dudes using her. So she chose to be who she is. And that's, you know, and you can go into, you can get deep into that. I don't want to get, I'm gonna stop talking at this point. Because it's not even worth the talk. More so that I just wanted to, more so to say that we don't even deal with the source when it comes to that. Like, we built a culture of not dealing with the source. We built a culture off just listening to a preacher telling you something. You reading the scripture in the Bible that he's telling you to read, but you ain't read the whole Bible from front to back yourself. At least in the Quran, most of them, they done made you read it. Especially if you came up as a Muslim. You done read the Quran. You probably versed, you know. At least in, you know, Judaism, you know, they bring you up in it. Christianity, last thing they really want is for you to have read the Bible when you come to church. That's the last thing they want, is a challenge or a different opinion. I know I used to be in Sunday school challenging them all the time. Mostly because I grew up going to church, oh man, every day. My great grandmother was holiness mother in a church, and her son built the church. She was so church. He was a carpenter, built her house, built his church, built his house, you know, and he was the preacher. And so I had a certain knowledge. So when you talking certain things and you come with your opinion, like, I don't believe that. You know, they were like, man, just let me teach, man. Stop doing that. You know, I'm like, all right, but I don't believe that. That ain't how I took it. That ain't what they said. Oh man. I was I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and I was celibate. This was probably I probably had been about 7-8 months in the celibacy. And this beautiful sister named Juliet, she was Jamaican sister, kept talking to my cousin about me taking her out. And I wouldn't take Juliet out for nothing, because I was trying to hold to being celibate, you know what I'm saying? And so finally I took Juliet out, and you know, we had a nice time. However, I couldn't live with myself, you know, because I was trying to be a certain person at that point in my life, and I needed to stand strong with who I was. So, you know, I kind of never was where I was supposed to be after that, so that we could kind of follow up. I used to see her at the pool all the time. My cousin was giving her swimming lessons along with some other people. And so I just would show up after the lessons. You know, I would never come when they was there, so that we could, so I could move on with my life. Move on. About 7 months later, Juliet calls me out of the blue. And she's like, I'm going to Bible study and I want to invite you to come with me. And so I was not a Christian at that point. I stopped being a Christian at 18 on purpose. I told my mom when I'm 18, I'm not going to church no more. I go until I'm 18, but I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna, figure it out from there. And so um, I knew that I needed to go with her though. And it was just more, I was curious of why I needed to go, but I was like, this call is for a reason and I need to go. So anyway, I went with her. She picked me up. We went to the little apartment where they were holding this meeting, and it was a multicultural meeting. A lot of Caribbean people from different islands, some white people, and when we got there, I saw she was with someone, like she was dating someone. So I could tell immediately that she wasn't calling me for a date. She actually was inviting me to her Bible study. You know, why me? Why after all this time? I don't know. That's part of why I went. So anyway, the leader was this white guy, and he started talking, and um, I wish I could remember the exact verse where we were at this time, but he said, that something about God was only going to bring in certain people, something, I don't remember what it was, and I was like, I don't agree with that. If it wasn't for everybody, I said something like, if it wasn't for everybody, it wouldn't be the case. Can't be just for certain people. Got to be for everybody, you know. And so as I'm talking to him and he's talking back to me, I see people going to get refreshments. Like they like, oh shit, what is he doing? We don't do that here, that type of deal. And so during the conversation, I see that Juliet has left. So now I don't have no ride home. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have just been quiet and made it home. I don't know. So anyway, we finished talking, and it kind of dissipated with that through that talk. Unfortunately for them, not for me. I was ready to go home. The person probably had left, and I was, But anyway, one of the brothers told me he'd give me a ride home, and as we was leaving, he was like, "Man, we needed that. We needed somebody to come in there and and challenge him, because no one ever does, and who knows if he's right or not. You know what I'm saying?" So, um, so anyway, that's how that went down, and uh, none of us are the actual source information. We're all dealing with our interpretation of what the quote unquote word was saying, but at the same time, I had enough knowledge to speak on what I was talking about, and and it should always be challenged if you don't necessarily agree. But getting back to what I was saying, the state and Christianity in particular don't want you to challenge it. Preachers don't want you; they just want to tell you anything. They want to keep us listening to anything. They want to keep us as sheep, moving in one direction, creating this loser Black American guy on this loser Black American system, that is not prepared to win anything. They want us to continue to only prepare our children to graduate and get a job. That's the best we could do, or get out of college and start doing nails, you know what I'm saying? Something like that, do some hair, um, be a barber, and those are commendable fields. That's not the point. The point is they don't want us to be engineers and change our stuff. They don't want us to build a skyscraper in the hood. We don't even understand about zoning and that we couldn't do that. We don't even if a little kid like, I want to build a skyscraper right here, he don't understand what he have to go through, because we're not taught those type of things. We're not pushed in that direction. I tell people all the time, growing up in Tallahassee, you don't have to be you don't have to go to college to make something of yourself. Everybody I know pretty much who owns a business from a trade. Even me. I was given an epiphany a long time ago that one of my songs, is not going to save Africa. However, it's hot. So learning HVAC and learning heating and air and understanding how to, repair ice machines and build ice houses and deal with HVAC infrastructure and buildings, it can help develop Africa. And so I was blessed, that that was put in front of me. And I understood to walk through that door and learn it. So, I'm not just a singer, songwriter, producer. I'm an HVAC guy. I'm a heating and air guy. And I appreciate that. It's helped me put food on my family, put my kids to a private school. It's been a blessing in my life. Helped me not have to hustle music and do the music that I want to do, and put it out when I want to put it out, how I want to put it out. That's been a blessing to me, so that's my particular little thing, but it comes from me understanding the source of where the change needs to come from. You understand? It comes from me understanding that continuing what we're doing is not what change looks like. Continue what we're doing and expecting different results is what insane looks like. It's what crazy looks like. And look outside your window, how crazy things are, how illogical we act in our deductions. Why would I not help African schools that's helping Black kids as opposed to send my kids to public school? Why wouldn't I want to invest into that? Because we're used to the white man doing for us and giving us stuff. We're not used to doing for ourselves. We're not used to that sacrifice. One thing about my father-in-law, he loves to tell me, because it's a big deal. He's like, you did it, Dad. And he talk about paying for them going to African Centered School. He didn't have that opportunity with his kids. He's glad I did and took it. He understands the value of that. One day I'm going to talk about him. He's created a model that nobody knows about in the whole United States. He has defeated gentrification. He has the only Black community in the United States that pushed back on gentrification. And it's still there because of the pushback. If you ain't been gentrified in America, it's because they ain't came for you yet. They came for this neighborhood. So we'll talk about that, in a future talk about him and the things he does. We'll talk about it in the ways that I can. Because part of why you don't know him and what he's done is because he learned a long time ago not to do interviews. He's about the work. He don't talk about it. He's about the work. Because he understood the source of the problem. He understood the source of the problem. And so he went to the root to deal with it and learn how to defend against the problem. He didn't theoretically think about it. He didn't pray on it. He didn't go to the pastor and ask for counseling about it. And he's been a problem solver since, his early adulthood. That's not the first thing he's done. He's done other things as well. And he's witnessed firsthand how the system, will gang up against you. And so this, the second time that thing came around, he had learned what to do. He had experienced the source and knew exactly how to handle it. And that's what we need to understand, that we can win. We've been losers for so long. We see winning as something that is a bar that's so low that we don't realize that you're still in loser territory. That's not winning. Graduating from college is not winning unless you have a directive with what you're going to do with that degree and what you're finna do as an adult to help make Africa great again and to create better Africans versus this terrible Black American we created. Unless you're doing that, college degree means nothing. If your trade isn't to help other young cats learn their trade and to use that trade in different ways, how you can help better Africans here and better Africa on the continent, plumbing for white people ain't about nothing. Unless you're using that money you plumbing for white people to advance in Africa, to build businesses in Africa. You just building your house and an extra room in your house here in America, getting an extra car, paying for your kid to go to school and get a degree so they can get a job. That's why we where we at. That's why the best of us is still a loser. And I'm strictly talking about that Black American. It's a lot of brothers out here is not losers. A lot of sisters out here not losers. They win it. They know what the directive is, and they're working at it. But just like our sisters ain't seen the brothers running our community, owning jobs, giving jobs to people, owning the businesses in our community, doing things worthwhile. Just like they ain't seen that. It's not enough of us doing the right thing to be seen and noticed. And that's okay. That's okay. We coming. Sometimes it's good not to be seen and noticed. That's one of the things I learned from my father-in-law. Be about the work. Be about the work. Seen and noticed is great. That's awesome to be seen and noticed. But can you defend seen and noticed? Or can they just blow it up in one Tulsa, in one Rosewood? Can they just blow it up and it's all gone? Johnny Cochran died. Are we talking about what are we talking about now with his law firm? Is it still one of the top law firms? What's going on with it? We got the new guy who's doing all the civil rights stuff, But for the most part, what has that done for our community? Let's just say over the last 20 years or so, Crump has made 50 people, 100 people, millionaires, made some cities pay some exorbitant money on some civil suits. Where our community at in these 20 years? How has that helped us? That's still not talking to the source and seeing if they have empathy. Because they don't. They pay you that money and still kill some more. They like those odds. They like those odds. That's not winning. That's not winning. I promise you. $50 million is not winning if some police killed my son. Knock on wood. That's not gonna do. And because that's not winning. How's that? That's oh, that's so not powerful. That's so not powerful. And in this society, that's what they're talking about. That's what they act like power is, like you're doing something. They act like marching. You know, that's part of why I hate seeing these young kids get beat up. How long are you gonna get beat up until you understand that's not it? Like people don't understand. You know, one thing about Martin Luther King, you know, he learned a little bit about Gandhi. He was learning about. Unfortunately, he was learning about Gandhi from someone who didn't understand Gandhi. And in the middle of that Gandhi lesson, that person was pulled away from him. So he really never understood Gandhi. And I can imagine at that point in the story of time or history, there may not have been enough literature about Gandhi to even talk about, you know, some of the that he was racist, first of all, that he didn't care about black people at all, you know, that he had um a bunch of negative comments about black people coming out of South Africa. When he was there, he didn't help them at all in their freedom struggle. He went home to help his people. You know, so I would imagine that there wasn't as much literature, you know, that was diverse about Gandhi at that point. But the point I'm making is that it wasn't the peaceful marching that was why Gandhi won. It wasn't his hunger strikes that was why Gandhi won. It was the threat of violence of the people behind him going crazy if he died at the hands of those white people, of the English. If the English allowed him to die of hunger, we're going to go crazy. The English knew that. That's why the English left. They left because they couldn't win. It was too many of them and they couldn't control them anymore. So they got out of Dodge. Plus they had set up business, and you know they had enough where they could leverage their position and leave, and they did. They still own the tea. They still own the I believe linen or cotton or whatever it was they were doing. A lot of it was tea. You know, but what I'm saying is that was his leverage. But you don't know that if you don't go to the source. If you don't study for yourself, you don't know that Gandhi's peace wasn't the leverage. Peaceful protesting didn't win India back. It wasn't the power to deal with the violence that was holding them down. It was the threat of their violence against that violence, because they had so many people who were at that point were fed up. So until we're fed up, things won't change. Until we're fed up, we're going to see the same old, same old. Same old loser Black American who's accepted no African in the growth and in what makes a Black American. The same thing. And until we get fed up, we're going to see the same thing. Till we get fed up, we won't start studying the source. Until we get fed up, we won't say, hey, can you put some extra sauce on that for me, please? Till we get fed up. You know, if you've found a little value in this, you know, you want to keep it going, keep us going, keep what we're doing going, please The Cash App is $ the original Rastafunk. If you got anything you want to add, you definitely welcome to come on. In the chat, we do have the StreamYard link where you can call in and chop it up with us for a little bit. Tonight we're talking about, can you put some source on it, please? So many times we say things and we haven't researched it for ourselves. So many times we make certain assertions, and we haven't researched it for ourselves. So many times we talk about things that we live in a way that has been proven is not successful, but we don't research it for ourselves and just go do it. We just go do it. This is what everybody else doing. I done seen people who have no job, living off of food stamps, and literally have said, my parents beat me. It worked for me. Really? What worked for you? How is it working? All I'm saying is you're going to have to see different. It's going to look very different. It's going to look very different if you want to see change. If it don't look different, it ain't changing. And it's going to be a lot of, I know it's pushback. I get that. I get it. The change is going to look different. I look at, the sisters and the brothers, and I wonder sometimes, sometimes I'm the type of person I like to see the good in things, so I'm like, okay, is this arguing gonna, or debating or not getting along, and are we seeing the difference that will push us to a positive? Are we seeing the difference that is going to push us to our demise? What is this? Because things are so crazy and foreign to what is in my mind humane and logical. It's like I wonder sometimes, how this will all end. And I'm sure we all wonder, from time to time, but it's just so interesting that it is different to a certain extent. It is different. It's different from how I was raised. It's different from when I saw certain things as, it's different from when common sense was common. Because common sense ain't common no more. It's totally not common. I literally, man, look, man, I went in the store, and when I walked in the store, the young brother was telling the guy behind the counter, this Arab guy, he was telling the guy, hey, he said, man, I just want $2 straight. That's all I want is $2 straight. Come on, man, what you doing? And then, he was walk, and then he's about to walk out. And as I was walking in, the Arab guy was like, show it to him, show it to him, show it to him. And the young brother's kind of walking in a circle, pissed off because whatever he's trying to get from the guy, he can't get. And the guy not, they not coming to terms on what he talking about. And so I'm really not studying it. I just want to get in and get out. I don't want to be involved in it at all. And so when I walk up to the counter, the Arab guy said, dumbass. No, he said, stupid ass. And so at that point, I looked at the Arab like, hey, bro, we ain't gonna be calling the young brother stupid ass and all that. And so the Arab looked at me. He saw how I looked at him. He's like, show it to him, because at that point he wants me to understand, because we've dealt with each other enough, where I haven't experienced having to check him for anything like that before. You know, so and he wanted me to understand where he was coming from when he said that. So he's like, show him, show him. So finally the brother reached in his pocket and pulled out a quarter. And so on the if you look at quarters, they say different things. This particular quarter at the bottom says $quarter. And so the young brother was asserting to the guy behind the counter that this was an actual dollar that looked like a quarter. That's why they called it a $quarter at the bottom. And that he wanted to get rid of the change in his pocket and get 2 case dollars. He wanted 2 regular dollars, $2 bills to fold with the other money he got. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say initially, except, bruh, that's a quarter. That's not a dollar. And so, bro was like, man, y'all keep it, man. I don't need no change, and just walked out, showing he had folded up dollars. But I was like, oh, hell no. I can't believe this. Did he really think that? Did he, because it's like he was old. This brother, he had to be over 18, between 18 and 20, right? So he's lived long enough to deal with quarters. Like, he couldn't think he was playing game on a store owner with a coin that they see all the time. Like, the whole thing was just crazy. I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It's crazy to me. So it is what it is, my brothers and sisters. That's the world we're living in, where you got young brothers thinking a quarter that says $quarter at the bottom is actually a dollar in quarter form, and that they should be able to spend it as such. That's what we're dealing with. But that's because they were never given source information. Source information is not the regular thing we're teaching our kids. Many of us aren't teaching our kids anything. Many of us are just working and allowing schools to teach our kids what schools teach. And I mean, come on now. What are we using that schools teach? At this point, if you're an adult, you hustling, trying to make money. If you got a degree and you're working in your degree, how often and how many degrees do you have to go back and get yearly certifications? And in those yearly certifications, what is actually the actual work you have to do that's new? What are they teaching you new about what you're doing? How are they innovating what you're doing, and how are you becoming more innovative in what you're doing? Because we understand in doctors, in the medical industry, doctors are only doing what they're told to do. Every illness has a point of care, and when you look it up, it has certain 1, 2, 3 ABCs you're going to do around the board everywhere in America. And nowhere, if a doctor decides in that point of care, he decides, all right, I'm going to give someone some herbs or this and that because I think this is going to work. Nowhere is that legal. He'll lose his license. So how much thought does a doctor have to put into doing whatever he does for his patients? As much thought as looking on the computer to see what the point of care is for that particular illness. That's it. You could do that. Just got to go to school for 8 years or so to get that degree. But after that, you could do that. You could do that. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't research. We're in awe of all these different people in all these different fields. And we think, oh, they're getting paid so much because they know so much. I know a few brothers who learn certain things on their own and can challenge any supposed expert in the world, because for the most part, the experts don't have answers, and they have answers and solutions. We're driving around in fossil fuel cars, and there are people who've come up with solutions to that. Before Tesla, before the electric car that we're seeing today, there are people who are in need of water because they're not by a water source. And we found solutions to that. But you wouldn't know that unless you researched and looked for source material. There's innovation going on. There's people who are coming up with things to make the world better. But those things don't make the people who are in power powerful. So they keep you from knowing and keep it from being implemented. Which is why we got to do better ourselves. We got to stop listening to what people say and look it up ourselves. We got to start asking the right question. Why are you coming to me with this gossip? Why didn't you defend me? Or why aren't you giving me the source information? Where can I get the source information? Matter of fact, you should be bringing me so-and-so number so I can call them and ask them what they said, not telling me what they said. Just bring me the number and say, hey, they talking about you. I told them I'm gonna give you the number so they can just tell you. I ain't want to even have to tell you about it. I told them just shh, shh, shh. I'm gonna give them the number and you finish your conversation when they call you. You can tell them to their face. Source information. Real shit. I mean, that's kind of ghetto source information, but I'm just saying. Get used to the source. Somebody telling you something. You see something on the internet that, interests you. Research it. Think in your mind. Can I get some source on that? Matter of fact, just make me a whole sauce sandwich with some sauce cheese and some sauce sauce and some extra sauce lettuce. Yeah, I just want a sauce sandwich. I think it's gonna go good with some sauce juice. you know, so that's the mind of Internalize and Rastafunk. I prefer some sauce on it because in my life I need to know the bottom line. I can't move forward with um I can't move forward with innuendo and guessing about a situation and kind of knowing about it. Anything I'm involved in, I want to know about. I want to understand it so that I can move forward, understanding the boundaries. Like I was telling you, when I get music equipment, I don't jump on it. I pick up before I even turn it on, I pick up the instruction book. Because if there's any boundaries or anything I can do, I go, the source is the instructions. They're telling you everything you can do. So that's how I like to move. I like to have source information as much as possible. I learn stuff um from some of my brothers all the time. And it's funny because as sometimes we may be on Zoom meetings or something like that, and my browser will have all these different windows open because as I'm learning things and they're talking, I'm looking it up to learn to see if it's true, to see where this is happening at, to see if oh man, I don't want to go visit that, that type of deal, because that's what's real. I got an assignment to listen to Lucky Dubé. I hadn't stopped to do that, but I'm gonna go do it because that's source material. I can have an opinion of of a few songs that I've listened to, but I have to give him a full listen before I can get a real opinion. And I didn't give him a full listen before because I was thinking of him as a reggae artist and I kept hearing something different. But now that in my mind, I categorize him as a South African artist, an African artist, I'm ready to go deep dive into Lucky Dubé. I'm ready to keep going. So with that said, I really appreciate y'all. I really appreciate y'all for tuning in to us every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're going to be here at 8 p.m. with Internalize. We'll have different subject matter that hopefully will interest you and keep you tuning in. And we're gonna have some fun over the next weekends. So we love you. Peace, love, and funk. And don't forget to cash out $, the original Rastafunk. We'll see you next Friday at 8 p.m. Peace.